All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Disruption live stream brought to you by the great folks at Pandemonium. This evening, we have a very riveting topic that we'll be talking about. We'll be talking about virtual education in Jamaica. Before we jump into the meat of our matter, however, I will allow Julian Francis, one of the principals of Pandemonium, to talk to us a little bit about, what Pandemonium is, what do they do. So, Julian, over to you. All right, so Julian, we're not hearing you. Yeah, I see you talking, but it seems like you're talking on mute.
Yes, I was. Common mistake in the world of virtual meetings. Thanks for
Right.
the introduction, Sandra, and thanks for coming on, everybody. It's our second season, so I'm happy to be here. Happy to be presenting on this live stream. And I'd like to share with you or remind you guys what Pandemonium Projects is and what we do. Right? We're an organization that seeks to provide its clients with optimal project management services spanning a discipline in any industry, if you remember that. And as part of our mission, we engage our clients in order to formally educate with the concepts of project management, implement innovative and stable solutions in order to maximize productivity and profitability, right? And by way of our company mantra, turning chaos into structure, we seek to always organize and execute with accuracy any project undertaken, right? And just a few of the services we offer. We do staff augmentation, project management and maintenance, graphic design and social media management, system development, and requirements gathering and analysis. Um, and that's the little we have on Pandemonium projects. You can reach out to me. You can check our LinkedIn or we'll be having an Instagram soon because I hear we need to be on there. So we'll see that soon. But thanks, Sandra, and handing the baton back to you.
All right. Thank you for that, Julian. So I'll definitely be the anchor leg. And you heard it here, guys. Pandemonium Projects is your project management solution. So earlier I said that we will be talking about virtual education in Jamaica. And to kind of take us through that discussion today, we have a very special guest with us. We have Mr. Ricardo Allen of One on One Educational Services. And one on One Educational Services is the Caribbean's most prominent online education technology company. Their award winning learning management system continues to allow regional institutions, companies, and governments to deliver online and on demand, personalized, and cutting edge learning solutions. Over the years, Ricardo has fused his innate passion for mathematics and his love for technology and people to build a solution that enables thousands across the region to take their favorite courses online at their convenience. And I don't know about anybody else, but I love the sound of that, right? The company started as an innovative business dedicated to providing personalized one on one teachers in a classroom. In March 2015, it launched its first award winning one on one online learning platform in an innovative and pioneering move. This subscription based service allows students to prepare for any exams in 30 hours or less, on demand and at their convenience. This LMS has been used by corporate and government entities across the region successfully to deliver educational content to students and teachers alike. Before his business success, Ricardo actually led the structured programs division at Sagicor Investment Jamaica, combining his strong background in actuarial mathematics, corporate finance, and economics to conceptualize and develop derivative products for the retail and corporate markets. He is a 2010 Rhodes Scholarship nominee and was awarded the 2013 U.S. Fulbright Scholarship before gracefully declining the opportunity so he could pursue his business interests. He graduated from the University of the West Indies in 2011, where he completed a Bachelor of Science degree in Actuarial Science. He's also a member of the Society of Actuaries, having completed numerous designated actuarial exams. Ricardo is a proud father of two daughters and prides himself on being a super big brother and compassionate husband. Ricardo, why I feel like your wife is the one who wrote that last part about the compassionate husband? Welcome, ladies. Ricardo Allen from One on One Services. Good afternoon, Ricardo.
Good evening. How you do?
I am great. How are you?
Fantastic, fantastic. Listen, my wife had something to do with it, but I don't know if she wrote it. It's always nice, family first.
Well, that is good, and it's a good segue you talking about family first, and that takes us into our topic for this afternoon: virtual education in Jamaica. Because I know that's not just something that's exclusive to the partners in the education sector, but also families alike. So, take us a little bit through this topic. A lot of us before COVID, we were not necessarily familiar with virtual education or what that even looks like, and now that is our actual day-to-day reality. So take us through that.
Sandra. First of all, and I'm very happy you kind of gave the spectrum and the introduction. Everyone who is joining, very happy to be with you this evening. So, when we just started out one on one, we actually started while I was in university studying to become an actuary. And we saw a gap at that time. At the time, I mean, Facebook and those things would have been about 3 years old, 4 years old. Twitter had not really come to great extent. This was in 2009. And so the internet and this new social media kind of thing, I mean, we're still kind of getting out of the MySpace and the i5
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing into the Facebook space. And then things like LinkedIn and so on were not even as big as it is yet. And for education, certainly, people used to kind of distribute it on CDs, that sort of thing. You remember those encyclopedias
Oh, yes.
that you get and you kind of push it in the computer and it plays. So that
Mm-hmm.
was online education as we knew it, right? And I would say that with any development such as the internet and so on, Sandra, you're going to have some derivatives of that coming up. In the same way, my background is in structured products where we use derivatives
Mm-hmm.
to structure products based on some stocks. You have these offshoots in terms of technology that will come as a result of the internet. It's a powerful, powerful mechanism. And
Mm-hmm.
so in the early days, right, when we talk about virtual education, really what we looked at was, whether it is I meet you online like we're doing now, and I probably go on Skype and I teach you. We started out that way, tutoring kids all across Kingston. So that's kind of what virtual education was in the early days. We also had a number of sites online, offering test preps and so on. And one of the
Mm-hmm.
things you encountered in was persons had some aversion to learning online. It will never work. My child don't learn that way. So many things. I had teachers who told me that, listen, if I subscribe or help you to build content online, then I don't have a job. So all
Mm-hmm.
of these ideas, Sandra, would have been in the early days. And these were some of the challenges we had to overcome. And to where we are now, 7, 10 years down, where we were placed in a situation where we had to learn online.
Mm-hmm.
What you found was the world quickly had to adapt very quickly to something that we could have planned 10 years ago.
Yep.
And so one on one being on the, somebody say, I remember using floppy disk, um, and so on. I mean, that's that's absolutely true,
Yes,
right?
we have some people showing up their age here, right?
Yeah, man. Floppy. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, floppy. This is way, way back. I didn't even. I didn't
But
remember
it's
that.
funny because when you spoke about the encyclopedias just now, like I thought even beyond CDs, I was actually thinking of the actual encyclopedias that you had persons walking around and selling, and for persons who maybe couldn't afford to buy the whole A to Z volume, they had to buy it piece by piece. So I mean, certainly to your point, we have come a long way where it
No,
comes on to education.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't afford it at that time, and then
Mhm.
what happened quickly after was that the computer stopped accommodating CDs, so we kind of had to find a way to put it online.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
Sandra, here's the interesting thing. When it comes on to putting content online, because virtual education assumes that content is online, consumed online.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest things that these teachers talk about is that when I distribute it on the CD in the early days, I didn't have to worry about somebody stealing the thing or anything like that. But when you put it online, the biggest fear they had was that what if they steal it, or what if I don't get to use it anymore and can't make money from it, this, that, and the other. So there was this aversion to going online. And if you
Mm-hmm.
realize, even now, where a lot of companies have to go, people actually don't want to put their things online for this reason. So
Yeah.
this virtual education disruption we're talking about, it has many different legs to it. There are several reasons why we were caught with our pants down in COVID.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for lack of trying. It's not for lack of people wanting to do it. It's just all of these aversion and just sticking to what you know. And that's what people tend to love, stick to what they know. So, we've come a very far way, as it turns out, in terms of virtual education. And we still have a lot of ways to go. I mean,
Yes.
the amount of development that has taken place, I would say, over the past 5 years has perhaps supplanted all the things that have happened over the past 30 years. And if you look at the different technologies that are available now, you, Sandra, can go online and take a course and get certified, right? Imagine how awesome that is. Think about this 4-year degree where we have to spend millions of dollars, but you can just go and do a project management course now, fully online, get certified, and then you
Mm-hmm.
can get a job that those people who are spending years in university are not securing. And
Yep.
so when you talk about virtual education and the disruption that it has caused or will cause, I see a lot of positives in it. So whereas early days people had aversion, that sort of thing, right now we have seen the power of it. In a time
Yeah.
like COVID where everybody is at home, this was our only hope to learn online. Now, what we've seen, Sandra, if you realize, is that too much of it tends to get people, boy, this is too much. I want to go back to face to face.
Mm-hmm.
Equally, I can tell you when the kids go back to face, a lot of them go and say, boy, I want to go back home because I have the flexibility. You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And this is the fact finding process in any new technology that has come about. I remember when cars were developed. Well, I don't remember, I wasn't there. But could you imagine when they were used to the horse and the buggies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and riding around and all of that, and the man come and say, I'm going to make a car to move you from X in that. No, man, I want my horse because it keeps me company and I can walk and I can stroll and so on. So
Yep.
with any new technology, even though it may appear better, there may be some aversion. But I think we can get there if we just continue on this trajectory by doing some simple things to really achieve what we need to.
Yeah. And I mean, you touched on a lot of things that I kind of want to do a deeper dive in. I mean, certainly you struck at the heart of what we're here to talk about, disruption. And it's funny because a lot of times when people hear the word disruption, they basically associate that with something negative, right? When you hear the word disruption in school, somebody's being disruptive, it's normally a bad thing. But I think one of the things that COVID has kind of taught us, and even with this whole scenario, is that with disruption comes opportunities, right? So it's not always a bad thing. And
Yep.
when you were talking about the early beginnings of one-on-one, you spoke about the challenges that you had to overcome. But I'm interested, and I would want to get to a little bit to know, with these challenges, like what were some of the things that yourself and your team found that you had to do to be able to overcome these challenges? Like, I figured you had to really roll up your sleeves and be innovative, but tell us a little bit about, what really were some of the things that you had to do to kind of get persons, their buying, and to get them to kind of overcome this aversion?
Sandra, that's a very good question, right?
Mhm.
In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. You ever hear that story?
Most definitely.
No, no, I'm in no way no king. And there are several entrepreneurs in the space who have done a very good job in actually predicting the future. And
Hmm.
I have a very layman's definition of prediction. Prediction is merely knowing something that someone else don't. Something, if you know just one thing that someone else don't, for me,
Hmm.
you are in a much better position. And I believe that there were a group of us, led by perhaps myself and a few others, who saw where, despite what people were saying and what they were used to, this had to be the future, Sandra. Think about it. Think about it, right? My little daughter, when she wants her Peppa Pig, I cannot tell her that Peppa Pig don't come on at 7:30 tonight, You have to wait till tomorrow now. That's 30 years ago.
Yeah.
People want it now. They want it on demand at their own convenience. Remember, you binge watch shows as well. So you want to just sit down one weekend and just watch shows. So why is it that our natural human behavior has changed, but we ourselves as human, how we learn, we're not going to change? And so that's the prediction we saw. We saw where learning would become more driven by a learner and not so much a teacher. The teacher role would effectively change to facilitate learning. And the truth is, Sandra, that's kind of how it started, That's how it started from way back in the days. It's the industrialized world that caused us to be in a classroom where we had to be on this whole curriculum to mass produce us, to throw us in the corporate environment, because that's what they're doing, mass producing people with a certain minimum amount of knowledge to put us out. So when we started out, we had all of those challenges. But we had to have a vision. And the vision was simple. Our vision personally at One and One was to take learning online and to deliver personalized learning online. What we meant was, Sandra, we studied history and we recognized that back in the day, it was one child to a teacher. Of course, Sandra, we can't possibly do that now. We can't possibly give a teacher to a child. I mean, frankly speaking, there are 500,000 students in our education system in Jamaica, and only 25,000 teachers are in the system. And so when you look at that ratio now, we are further behind in terms of teachers and that sort of thing. So we can't do that. So the question now becomes, Sandra, for us in the early days was, how do we create a personalized experience without actually using humans to do that? And so what we did was simply to conceptualize a program where every child, Sandra, before they started learning, they need to do a test. We call it a skills gap test. You see? And this was our vision, We said we're going to build these skills gap tests. You're going to do a test. At the end of the test, we're going to pair you with learning. So to give you the on-demand learning. So you watch your videos and you can get it, right? And then once you're through with that, if you're stuck, you can connect with that teacher. So instead of that teacher being over you, ensuring that you do this and that at that time and so on, the teacher is only used when they're needed. Now, that's important now, Sandra. It teaches independence to the children so that when they go into the world, they're not used to this being spoon-fed, etc. And so that was our vision. So you asked the question, how did we overcome the challenges? It was simple, but very difficult. It was to be steadfast in the vision, Sandra. We had to get very good investors because, you see, education is one of those things. It's not as sexy as other industries. It's something you have to be passionate about.
Yeah.
And therefore, because you see, it's a slow process, but it's almost guaranteed. So to be patient, it means that you needed capital. For disruption to happen, patience, capital, and it also requires some changes of the mindset in some folks who make the decision. But we couldn't get inhibited by that, Sandra. We couldn't just sit back and say, boy, if government don't change to allow online learning, we're not going to do it. Instead, what we sought to do was, if we could get enough people to learn this way and do well, Sandra, do well by learning online. For example, me, I did an actual exam in 2012. It was financial mathematics, Sandra. I used some videos online to study for the exam. And I got a perfect score on that actual exam. Never get a perfect score on another exam. You see? And all I used was videos. And so for me, that's when I start making math videos for people. Because I'm saying if I could have learned just by sitting and watching these videos, and when I got stuck, I connected with that teacher, could I create something that everybody kind of learns the same way? The power of that, Sandra, is that we can potentially deliver personalized learning to everybody, despite where they live, which teacher them have access to, etc. So to sum it all up, we have to have the vision. We have to have the capital. Because when you start building, when we did our first build, we spent close to probably 100 million just building content, Sandra. And then we got to a stage where we build all this content for the entire curriculum. And now people are not buying it as quickly. And
Mm-hmm.
so now you're looking and say, boy, I'm running out of money. So it's a different industry. And for disruption truly to take place, you need like a 5-year to 10-year kind of runway where you can really, really invest in making what it needs to be. And this is perhaps what we need at a government level if we really want to see true disruption. What we have done privately and other companies too, what they have done
Mm-hmm.
privately to replicate that at a national level, and we will get the results. So you have to have those three things: the vision, you have to have the money, and you really have to can talk sweet. You have to can go in and convince the right people.
Yeah, that's so true. And one of the things about virtual education is that as much as how it is a mainstay, no, it is not really something new. Because I know at the tertiary level, that was something that a lot of persons, a lot of universities here, had that modality where you could choose to go face to face, you could choose to go virtual. And I imagine that perhaps for somebody at the adult learner stage, that level of independence that you spoke about and that level of commitment to actually, watch the videos, see the process through, I'm gonna assume from my very simplistic mind forward, pardon me, probably would be easier for somebody at the adult level. But talk to me a little bit about when you're doing this kind of transition now to younger learners, children whose attention span sometimes, is not what it should be. You spoke about your daughter and Peppa Pig. I mean, I have young daughters too, and I know for my daughter, when my daughter is watching TV, she's bouncing all over the couch and she's dancing and she's doing stuff. But if you ask her, she's watching TV, and she can, for the most part, tell you what happens. So talk to me a little about when you're doing that transition to younger learners, what whether systems or processes did you kind of put in place to ensure that you didn't lose them and that they were actually grasping the videos and the concepts that were being taught.
Sandra, is an interesting thing, right? I think, look, I have two daughters. One is 4 and one is 7. And there's something I've realized that's so special and yet very unique. I have two girls and I'm building a little netball team. And you don't have to force them, you don't have to push them to watch the YouTube. You don't have to force them, you don't have to push them to play with the little cat where they speak and it repeats everything that they have said. You don't. So if they can do all of that unprovoked, could we potentially package education in such a way where to them, that's all it is, but to us, they're actually learning? You know,
Mhm,
Perhaps we should actually get away from this whole idea of trying to teach at a very structured level, at that level. Mommy, she is very structured, so she makes sure she goes through her thing and so on.
mhm,
But for me, when my daughter struggles, I just find something that she really likes. I first understand the topic she's struggling with. I find a video that she really likes that teaches her how to do it. And then I
mhm,
go out back and I just have her interacting with her environment so that I can teach those same concepts she just saw. And that's where learning takes place. So, in a way, without giving you a lesson, I have inherently given you a lesson by combining what you love to do in terms of those videos and so on that you spend hours doing. And, farming, for example. So I'm now teaching my daughters how to farm and plant the seed and then it grows and then she sees it comes out and thing. And she doesn't know she's learning a lesson. She just thinks that she's farming out back with daddy. Don't ask
mhm,
her anything about that, she can tell you. So Sandra, the point I'm making is, while we have not figured out totally
mhm,
how a child, like a toddler, a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, is best at learning, and we don't have, let's say, a structured curriculum in that regard, we know what they love. And so the solution has to be something that is centered around that. Now, as you get older and older, for example, a person who is entering CSEC, I don't know
mhm.
if you heard, but only 40% of those who did math pass.
Yep.
It's a problem. So why
Yeah.
is it that students at one-on-one, Sandra, we have over 90% pass rate for math, but nationally we have 41? Why is that the case? We have to look at the why. And I can tell you a bit of the why. Sandra, when I was doing that actual exam I told you about that I got that perfect score on, right?
Mhm,
I had encountered questions on that paper when I was studying where I didn't know the answer. And I worked it, and the answer that I was getting never matched up with what the book said I should get. And I challenged it, and I challenged it, and I just challenged it. You see, the way I practiced was that I focus on my skills. For example, if I'm weak in fractions, I work fraction questions until I get it. Can we use the technology to replicate that? Because if we can, technically, we can figure out every child, all their skills, all their gaps, and have them work on those gaps. Now, when I entered that exam, Sandra, I finished ahead of time. I got a perfect score. Remember, ahead of time, perfect score. And I did it not by doing any past papers or anything like that. I just focused on my skills. So at that higher level, you focus on the skills. Now you talk about adults. How does an adult learn and do all of these things? Well, the higher you get in learning, you get to start to create and use what you've learned. So, for example, if I'm teaching someone who is 25 how to value a company, or I am teaching them a skill in project management and so on, we should
Mm-hmm.
not be in classrooms reading books on top of books of case studies that happened 20 years ago. We should be working on a project where the outcome is actually the project being delivered. And that is
Yeah.
where learning takes place. And so we should scrap the idea of people doing these lengths of times of, I remember when I was doing my actuarial degree, um, I would go to class, I would learn the thing, but I tell you, I'm in my dorm room building models, calculating life expectancy of people living and dying. So as I learn it, I'm applying it. That's how learning should be. That's the disruption we need,
Yeah.
which is why we need to use it to deliver the information, Sandra. So the teachers now can facilitate and allow kids to create. And I can tell you, that is how we're going to get the positive outcomes. That's where we're going to get the disruption.
Yeah, and you're right. Disruption is what we need. I mean, that's the way you see a lot of even companies going in that direction now. So even like your Googles, your IBMs, they are not so much focused on, the paper that you might have, the letters behind your name. They're looking at your skills, they're looking at your ability to actually work in these real life situations. A lot of company have these, ideation labs where you have a lot of
Absolutely.
simulations and things like that. So, I mean, definitely it is something that we have to consider. One of the questions I also want to ask you as well, Ricardo, when we think about virtual education and we think about learning, one of the things that is apparent to us, and even in my own family, is that different kids or different children, they learn differently. And again, going back to family, I have two daughters. Both of them learn very differently. What might appeal to one as the way to learn may not appeal to other as the way to learn. How can we, virtually in transitioning, well, not transitioning because we're already here, but in this modality that we exist now, how can we ensure that we are engaging and capturing, the auditory learners, the kids that learn, with tactile, they have to feel, those that they have to actually do the thing and be in that situation. How can we ensure that we are inclusive of all different learner types when it comes to virtual education?
I'm going to make a prediction now, right? Right, Sandra?
Hmm.
In 10 years, the year is 2030. We're sitting here, it's a November. You and I are both 10 years older. You still look as young, I still look as young, hopefully.
Thank
But
you for adding that.
yeah, man, but 10 years older. And we are going to be seeing children where learning becomes what I call transcendent, where every child will have a personalized learning from artificial intelligence. I want you to think of this as almost a bot, where just in the same way you shop on Amazon, Amazon tells you the things that you may like or you may want to buy and say, oh, I want that kind of thing.
Mhm.
In the same way, you're gonna have these artificial systems who understands our learning style, what we're struggling with, how best we can receive the information, and it may be by trial and error. So the tech may give it to you one way and it realize you didn't get it. And then it tries another way and it realize you get it. So now that is information that the next time that comes in front of him, this is how I'm going to feed it the information. And then I'm going to
But
get it.
Ricardo, Ricardo, that exists now, you know. I mean, maybe not with the prevalence that it should, but when you're doing some of these online exams, especially at the adult level with the accreditation, when you do the
Absolutely.
assessment and it asks you certain questions, because I went through that, it asks you certain questions, and at the end it gives you an assessment and basically kind of builds out a learning path for you. So it will tell you, okay, these are the things you need to focus on. Perhaps this is the order that you need to focus on them, and you take it from there.
You have touched it, Sandra. That's where I'm going. Adaptive learning. Now,
Yeah.
we do that in terms of assessing you and giving you your learning paths and your courses, but it's going to be at a different level. What I mean by that is that just imagine, right? I have this crazy idea and I'll share it with you now and for the audience, where I believe that we can get back to the stage of giving every child a personal tutor. It just may not be a human. It may be, for example, in the same way you know Alexa, and Alexa knows every time you go into the shower which music to play.
Mhm.
You may have these systems that learn your behavior and your learning behavior so well that the next time you say, I am struggling with this subject, and it just teaches you just as a teacher would. Like, that's what I think the kind of big picture is. Now, when we're going to achieve that, I think, as you rightly said, we're closer to it than a lot of people think. Now, I'm a little
Mhm.
biased because I'm living in it every day. So if you were to ask me, you know, if I get enough money and capital and probably a university to get sponsored and we have a research lab, I can tell you that we can deliver this in 5 years. But I want to be generous. 10 years. I see kids not just learning from their teachers, but just about the technology will be an extension of them in the same way that, as I said, buying preferences are known by Amazon, etc. As you rightly said, you know, what content is required to get you this concept to make you understand it. That's where the world is going. Now, the way we do it now is that we give you a course if you're weak on this skill. We give you a course to fix it. But we're talking about a granularized version of that. So you may not understand what x plus y equal 2 and x minus 2y equal, let's say, 3, how to solve that. But then
Mhm.
I can dig into your mind to really understand why you can't understand that. What is it that prevents you from understanding? Is it the algebra that you missed 2 years ago? Because remember, we're not tracking that in school now, you know. When you get 80, we're still promoting you to the next grade. Now, when you get 80, can I track to say, okay, you did not get this skill. So the next time you are having trouble with this particular thing, I can point back and say it's because you didn't get this skill. Now, take this so that you can get this skill. It's going to be amazing, Sandra. And the thing is, you know, teachers will still have their jobs. But just like in cars and the arse and the buggy days that I told you about, the role will change. It will create new and emerging jobs as well, but the role will certainly change for teachers, educators, parents, and the like. You see, Mark
I'm
Zuckerberg with the metaverse.
yeah,
You're going to
and
have
I'm
an
glad you touched
eduverse.
on that. I'm glad you touched on that because that brings me to my next question. You know, I hear you talking, and it just reminds me of when I used to sit at home and watch Star Trek. Like, these things seem so far, but possibly, and it's kind of scary, but it's kind of exciting at the same time. And you touched on teachers, and I kind of want to ask you that because when we talk about virtual education, we have to think about one of our key stakeholders. You know, one of our key players in the virtual education sector is our teachers, or are our teachers. You know, what is it that our teachers need to do to be able to be successful in this space? Because I think a lot of them fear it. And I can tell you, you know, at the beginning of COVID, when we were told that we were going to be transitioning to virtual education, like, that fear was palpable. You heard it a lot. You heard the JTA having to have a lot of meetings. You heard it in the news. But we are here now and we're living it. So I'm sure you still have those teachers out there who still have not bought in and really embraced virtual education. It's more out of a, you know, we're here now, we have to do it, but it is the way of the world. So if I am a teacher, what is it that I need to do to thrive and be successful in this space?
You know, that's an excellent question. I tell you something, Sandra. If, and for the listeners who are here, if tomorrow morning it became rule of law on earth that we couldn't walk anymore, we had to fly, the whole of us would feel inadequate. You
Mhm.
see? We would feel inadequate. We don't know what to do with ourselves, and we would feel less than ourselves. It's not a great feeling. There are a
Yeah.
lot of teachers, parents, and so on as a result of COVID who felt that way when COVID came. How do I navigate this new thing? How do I do this? How do I do that? Myself, who I've been in this space for the past 10 years, well, 8 years, I also had to learn how to do it for my daughters. And so the point is that you have an education system which has really not gone through several changes over the past 100 years. I mean, and I can tell you that back in 1920s, I think his a philosopher, he said that the next big thing in education was going to be the screen, and it's going to help solve and help kids to learn online, and it's going to replace textbooks. Well, we're still using textbooks, Sandra, 100 years.
Hmm.
So is it that a revolution is required in education, evolution of minds, the way we think about education? You see, until we change our view that teachers are not merely disseminators of information, but facilitators in the learning process. Teachers should not be going into a class and writing on a chalkboard, chalkboard, blackboard, whiteboard, any type of the board. It should not be happening. A teacher's role, Sandra, is to go into a class and see the children experiencing and doing things and so on, and go and assist them and guide this one and guide that one and guide that one. And so that's how learning actually takes place, to
So why
facilitate the
aren't we
learning
doing
process.
that? Why aren't
And
we doing
that's
that?
the thing. That's why I started the presentation how I did, Sandra. You see, education is a long game. It's not a short game. If you are listening here today and you just want to come in, eat a food, and then leave, then this is not the industry for you. You see, until we look at education, Sandra, as infrastructure, we're going to have this problem where people keep saying, boy, we can't afford to pay teachers more. Boy, we can't afford all of these resources in the classroom. If we were to look at it instead, just like the toll road, Sandra, when we're building the one from here to Mandeville, and we say to ourselves, look, if we put in place a toll road, within 10 years, it's going to lead to more efficiencies, goods get to the people quicker, people get to live in the country, that sort of thing, cheaper home prices, etc. That's how they justify these toll roads. Well, I have one for you for education. Less than 10% of our workforce are trained beyond the secondary school level. As a result, our GDP is too low to pay people too much, because tax
Hmm.
revenues come from economic activity. Now, if we were just to spend 5% more on education, right? And education has the biggest budget. Let me just say that. So credit to the government and so on. But I'm saying, if we were just to do more, to give and arm every child with the basic tools and currency in this day and age, which is a device and connectivity, it would cost us 6 billion Jamaican dollar every year in Jamaica. I did the math myself. $6 billion every year. Now, if we were to make such an investment, do you know, Sandra, in 20 years where we will be? Miles ahead. But we're
Yeah.
not willing to do that because it's a long game. We're seeing it
Yeah.
now within the next 5 years and so on. And there are several ways that we can approach that. But I'm saying the teachers, their role, by the way, teachers have been doing an excellent job. Okay? Let me
Yeah.
just tell you, they have been fantastic. What we need is for a mindset change. We need to remove this thing where teachers are disseminators of information and arm them to be facilitators of information. And it has to
Yeah.
start with them, Sandra. We're talking about the same way you have your pretty headphones there and so on. We need every teacher to be armed with a headphone, a device, and so on. We also
Hmm.
need to give them the knowledge. 4,000 teachers is the number of teachers we have trained since last year on one-on-one learning platform. They are taking project management. They're doing digital marketing, digital content creation. I just saw a teacher posted on LinkedIn 5 certificates she got in 3 weeks from one-on-one, taking these courses. So we have to give them the knowledge, we have to give them the tool, and we have to lead the mindset change. Because if we don't do that, we're going to be stuck in a situation where they're just disseminated information, but not facilitating.
Yeah. And that is, I mean, that is powerful what you said. I sat here listening and I got literal goosebumps, because we have to empower our teachers. And when I'm thinking and I'm sitting listening to you about where we need to be, one of the things that it kind of struck me, and this is something that always strikes me when I think about it. Like, there are jobs that we are training our kids for that don't even exist now, right? And even now,
No
there,
exist, Sandra.
there are jobs that exist now that 10 years ago did not exist when we were in school and going through, our education. As you spoke about, it was very linear and very structured. We were basically trained to almost aspire to very specific roles. And as you go forward, you realize that things shift. I mean, when you look at some of the top 10 jobs in the world, no, I mean, data analysis is essentially coming out in the top 5. And that's not something that you
That's
would
the math.
find. There you go. And that's something that, typically in your traditional educational path, you wouldn't have found that 10, 20 years ago. I mean, I hear my daughter now talking about wanting to be a YouTube vlogger and wanting to be a content creator, and
And
my
you
daughter
beat,
is
you tell
7.
her no, you tell what you tell her.
I don't tell her no. I say, of course. But I mean, and you understand that there is a whole process behind it. There is a whole knowledge behind it. So, we sit down on these things and we think that they're very trivial. But I think a lot of it is that we have to, you spoke about empowerment of teachers, but I think we have to also empower our children to think broadly and to think outside of the box, and that education is not just linear, as you said. It's not just reading a textbook. It's not just sitting behind a screen and watching a video. It's so much more. And as we come to the end of our session here, Ricardo, I mean, you've given us so many great insights. There's one thing I kind of want to go out on, and I want you to kind of give me a start, stop, continue of our virtual education, process in Jamaica. What are the things that we are not doing that we need to start doing? What are the things that we're doing that we need to stop doing? And what are the things that we're doing well at that we should continue doing?
Yeah, I'll start with the well, that we should. I think the spirit of our people in terms of Jamaica and our willingness to be sufficiently entrepreneurial and just, rise to challenges. We've been doing it for the past 400 years. Just any challenge, we've responded well as a people, right? And so I salute the teachers, I salute the parents, I salute the students who have really taken the last 2 years and just kind of sucked it up, and they're going to come out swinging. Now, a lot of people, Sandra, thinks that students are going to be behind. I hear people saying, boy, they should repeat. I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying that's madness. It's such a
You know,
big
I
thing.
you know I made that mistake. I'm gonna confess that I actually thought that, and I approached the school. I approached my daughter's teacher, my 7-year-old, and said, based on what we saw from the virtual space, I am concerned for my child. I'm thinking that she should repeat. And the teacher was like, "Are you crazy?" And she's like, "Hell no." So obviously she knew something that I did not,
No,
right? But
listen, it's amazing what you just said there, right?
mhm,
Your daughter, right? It's such a big opportunity. The fact that she's not in a structured environment. So I know a lot of people going and say, boy, Ricardo, what you talking about? I'm saying the fact that they weren't in a structured environment gives you the opportunity to teach them new skills, is what I'm saying. Now, you may not have the time to do so. So remember where I start. The teachers have done well. We've been resilient. But I want to
mhm,
move into something else now. I want to move into kind of what we can do better kind of thing, right? And hear me out now.
mhm,
Instead of trying to get the child to repeat and so on, how about we use the time? When COVID hit, we had to react, Sandra. We had to.
mhm,
We had to
mhm,
do things very quick to get the thing done. It's been 2 years almost. So what do we do? At this time, we should move away from the quick fix to using the opportunity to put in place strategies to make this our norm. Meaning,
mhm,
when your daughter comes back to the classroom, she should not be exposed to a structured curriculum as everybody else. She may be ahead of the class, she may be behind, but she should be given her own curriculum. So if she wants to turn a doctor, Indian chief in the high school, whatever she wants, she should be able to augment these skill courses along with our traditional math and language and so on. I want it to be
mhm,
the case where after 18, 19, you have people who can enter the workforce and create. No longer should you wait until 25. You wait till you're 25, the world is 4 years ahead of you. The technology is outdated. So that's one. That's one of the things I think we just need to use as an opportunity to do better. What do we need to stop, however? Let me tell you what we need to stop. We need to stop this whole matter of looking to the government and looking to government to this and that to solve our problems, right? I'm not saying that they're not important. What I'm saying is that with the internet being so openly available and accessible to every one of us, right? Knowledge is now democratized, meaning that you can start a business or an idea tomorrow morning just by going online, as you rightly said, and start vlogging about some videos about how to do this, that, and the other. We're so
Mm-hmm.
creative, and so we can do all of these things. So what I'm saying is that we should take more agency. Stop depending on the government. Stop saying you should, you should, you should. Parents, teachers, everybody alike. The information is there. Free courses are online. You can go on and you can learn something new. You can use what you've learned to create. When you create, you can earn more if you're a teacher. When you
Yeah.
create as a parent, you can help your child. When you create as a student, you are going to be ahead of your class. So I want you to stop looking for people to come and save you. Everybody got swept off their feet. So everybody laying down. I want to paint a picture for you. Everybody is like a hurricane come and just sweep everybody off them feet. So everybody is down. So don't look at anybody to help you. What you have to look at yourself now, how you go and pull yourself up on your own strength. The internet is the perfect equalizer because everybody have it. The same
Mm-hmm.
information is there. It's like when you go to the doctor Sandra and you said this don't make sense because WebMD tell you something different. And you start challenge the doctor now based on the the Google doctors, right? You have that data and so on. So these are the things I think we need to do. And the final one I'll hit you with before we leave. While I've just said that we should not look at the government for help, I think there's something that they can do. I think we need to look at helping these companies like myself, tech companies, to arm us. We have the knowledge. We have the knowledge. We have the resource. This is what we do primarily. Give us the funding in research to partner up with these universities to create the disruption in education that is required to advance our human race in Jamaica. Hear what I just
Yeah.
said? I'm not asking for the government to give me money or you any money, Sandra. I am saying make funding available in the budget to fund research in virtual education and bringing us forward. Too much talk about Vision 2030, and every year we're resetting the clock. We need to do something now, and that's why some more action.
Yeah. Yep. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you for that, Ricardo. As I said, you've given us so many great insights. So if I'm gonna take good stock of my start, stop, continue, it is continue being resilient because we have been doing a good job of that. We need to stop depending on the government, as you said, and the government needs to start investing better on providing greater resources. So you said not necessarily money, but provide resources to allow further research in virtual education. So awesome
Absolutely.
and great way to kind of end our fireside chat. Before we close off though, we will allow for opportunity for questions. So if there are any questions we do ask that you just drop them in the chat, we of course will get to them. Um, and of course, whilst we have been in our session, Ricardo, we have been seeing a lot of feedback in the chat as well. A lot of persons agreeing with what you're saying. What you're saying, we have persons saying that we definitely need to think more about tailoring learning to the individual. The fact that we need to empower our teachers to be facilitators of knowledge. And just about we have someone here who is giving a testimony to one-on-one who said that her son has improved from a D student to a steady B, using the services of one-on-one. So obviously the success stories are there.
Love it.
We're being told it was also a great presentation, and I do concur. As I said, I
Nice
I
chat.
consider I consider myself an enlightened individual, but at the same time, I'm also a parent, and sometimes they don't coexist together.
True,
Because
true,
as a
true.
parent, you have certain ideals. So even though you might be enlightened that you're saying, okay, this is the way things should be, when you're a parent, you also have certain ideals as a parent. And sometimes, even I found that too, sometimes even we hold our children back because we are scared, we are not fully understanding of what they're capable of. I
Right.
don't think it is not that we're not confident in our children, but sometimes we just can't see the audacity of what they are capable of. Our minds don't allow us to see it because maybe those are things that maybe a child's brain can comprehend that we can't. but definitely a lot to think about. Definitely are not a lot that we need to do to push us forward, but I'm glad that you're saying that we have started to do it. I'm glad that one-on-one is doing a lot in the space, and I will commend you and your team, and just tell you to just continue doing what you're doing, continue disrupting, you know, and continue pushing for greater successes in virtual education, because as we know, guys and viewers out there, this is the way of the world. It's not going to change. It's here with us. So we, each of us, need to do what we need to do to kind of make the space greater and more successful. So with that, Ricardo, I want to thank you for joining us today. I want to thank all the viewers who joined us on the Pandemonium live stream, and also to the Pandemonium's team for making this possible. And definitely look out for another live stream from the Pandemonium Projects team. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Take care. Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye bye.